This is Shackleton Crater. It is 21 kilometers wide, permanently shadowed, and holds 600 million metric tons of water ice that has been frozen for 2 billion years, since before the first animal appeared on Earth. Humanity is about to drink it. What does a city look like when it is built inside a tunnel? How does a child grow up when the sky is a black dome with a fixed blue circle in it? What happens to bones that spend 10 years in 1/6 gravity? What does bacteria do when there is nowhere for it to go? What does a government look like when it governs 80 people in a crater? And when the first person dies here, in vacuum, on a world with no ceremony to borrow, what does the community invent in the moment to mark that? The 5 starships begin their descent, chosen for Shackleton specifically because of what orbital radar found here years earlier. Permanently shadowed crater floors holding an estimated 600 million metric tons of water ice, and crater rim peaks that receive near continuous sunlight. The cargo manifest includes solar arrays, backup fuel cells, oxygen recyclers, dried food stores, waste processing units, spacesuits, medical supplies, and the first collapsible habitation pods. One starship deploys a set of relay satellites before landing. Only 3 are needed to cover the base site, since this operation stays concentrated in a single crater for its first decade. The crater is 21 kilometers wide. The ice beneath it is 2 billion years old. Neither fact is in the mission briefing. Neither needs to be. Boston Dynamics built quadruped robots and NASA-designed rovers roll out from the landers and begin unfolding solar panel arrays across the sunlit crater rim. Nearly 4 football fields of surface area by the end of the month. Lunar solar panels run at roughly 20% higher efficiency than their Martian counterparts, but they face 14-day stretches of complete darkness during the lunar night. Battery buffering is priority 1. Everything else waits. Robotic drilling rigs lower into the permanent shadow of the crater floor, where temperatures never rise above -173 degrees Celsius. The ice has sat undisturbed since before the first animals appeared on Earth. Electrolysis units stage nearby, ready to split extracted water into breathable oxygen and hydrogen fuel the moment production begins. The first processed water, filtered, tested, certified safe, comes online. The mission log records it in a single line. Water secured. It unlocks everything that follows. Drinking water for future crews, oxygen for the habitat, propellant for return trips. 3 words in a log file, the foundation of everything built afterward. 1 full year in, the lunar population is entirely robotic. 42 rovers, 18 quadrupeds, and a fleet of autonomous 3D printing units, coordinating without a single human on the surface. SpaceX begins fueling the first crewed starships in Earth orbit. The launch window is narrow. It will not wait. 20 astronauts touch down at Shackleton. Engineers, geologists, a physician, and 2 structural specialists. The trip from Earth orbit takes 4 days, not 7 months. Still, the first week goes entirely to adjusting to 1/6 gravity and unpacking pre-positioned systems. The base holds its first ceremonial meal on day 8. Powdered eggs and rehydrated vegetables, eaten in silence while Earth hangs fixed and blue above the crater rim, close enough to look like something you could touch. Nobody says much. Nobody needs to. A regolith 3D printer begins extruding the base's first true structure. A radiation shelter. Walls printed 3 meters thick from lunar dust and polymer resin to block cosmic rays that Earth's atmosphere always filtered out for free. Crews nickname it the bunker. It becomes the only place on the surface rated safe during a solar flare, and the first place anyone runs when the alert sounds. Ground-penetrating radar confirms a collapsed lava tube running almost 90 meters wide beneath the crater's eastern edge. A tunnel carved by volcanic flow billions of years before any spacecraft existed. It becomes the target for the base's first underground expansion. Pre-shielded, structurally intact, requiring far less printed material than anything built on the exposed surface. The geological accident that created it happened 3.5 billion years ago. It saves the colony's first expansion budget entirely. The Boring Company's first lunar-rated tunnel digger, shipped disassembled and reassembled by robotic crews, begins carving connecting passageways between the bunker and the lava tube below. Engineers nicknamed the growing tunnel network the basement. The name sticks immediately, used without irony, as though it is simply what this place has always been called. In Earth orbit, SpaceX ramps Starship production to 9 vehicles per month. The Mars program is now funded. The Moon is no longer the destination. It is the rehearsal. A compact nuclear fission reactor, rated to run 12 years without refueling, is installed to guarantee power through the lunar nights that solar arrays alone cannot cover. With round-the-clock power confirmed for the first time, round-the-clock construction begins. The basement grows faster in the next 6 months than in the previous 2 years combined. The first agricultural dome, printed from regolith and fitted with radiation-shielded glass tuned to the wavelengths crops require, is completed. Dwarf wheat, radishes, and leafy greens go into a hydroponic bed layered over crushed regolith. 60 days later, the base holds its first harvest ceremony. The meal is small. Every person on the base is at the table. It is the first food eaten on the Moon that did not travel 384,000 kilometers to get there. Someone keeps the menu. It is not an official record. It is handwritten on the back of a supply manifest. Nobody assigns the task. Someone simply decides it should be remembered, and does it. A routine check of the greenhouse's hydroponic nutrient solution finds an unexpected reading. A strain of bacteria, introduced with the regolith substrate, is cycling phosphorus at 9% above its designed rate. Not harmful. Not significant enough to flag as a problem. The base's agricultural specialist logs it as an anomaly and marks it for future monitoring. She notes in the same entry that bacteria in a closed system have no external environment to equilibrate against. They adapt to whatever is in front of them. Whatever is in front of them is the colony. The log entry is 3 sentences. Nobody reads it for another 4 years. Population passes 50. Multi-year postings have replaced rotating crews. Some residents choose to extend indefinitely rather than rotate home. In 1/6 gravity, bones and muscle atrophy at rates that no Earth-based research had fully modeled. Daily resistance training becomes mandatory, enforced by wearable sensors tracking bone density in real time. A structural engineer who arrived at 28 now has the skeletal profile of someone nearly 40. Her body has been keeping its own records of what this place costs. The base physician, working from the bone density data accumulating across the entire population, formally opens a longitudinal study into what extended low-gravity exposure does to the human body across a full generation. The study has no planned end date. She writes in the opening methodology, "We do not yet know what we are looking for, which is the correct way to begin." The study will still be running 100 years from now. Its dataset expanded across 4 worlds and 5 generations of researchers. Its conclusion section still blank. The base holds its first wedding inside the basement's largest connected chamber. 68 residents in attendance, the entire population at the time. It is broadcast to Earth on a 12-second delay. The ceremony is short. The couple wrote it themselves because no existing tradition quite fits a room carved out of a lunar lava tube, and they decided something new was more honest than something borrowed. The first child born on the Moon arrives in the medical bay built into the basement's deepest, best shielded chamber. She is named Shackleton, after the crater that made all of this possible, continuing a tradition the crew began years earlier of naming milestones after the ground they stand on. Her first steps happen in gravity 1/6 of what her ancestors evolved in. Her wrist bones and ankle bones, observed from her first weeks, develop along a geometry slightly different from any human born before her. Not dramatically, not enough to matter yet, but enough to note. The base physician notes it. She is also, by strict biological definition, the first human being in history for whom Earth is a foreign planet. Every person born before her, on every continent, in every century, was born on the same world their species evolved on. She is not. The doctors know this. They don't say it aloud at the ceremony. There is no ritual adequate to it. The physician writes it into the long-term study instead, in the same flat clinical language used for everything else, and moves on to the next item on the checklist. Then she opens a new book. Not a digital log. A physical book, brought from Earth in her personal cargo allotment. One of 12 personal items she was permitted. She writes the first entry by hand. Shackleton, born in Shackleton Crater, lunar South Pole. Her mother grew up on a street in Osaka where there was a bakery on the corner that opened at 5 a.m. and you could smell it from the end of the block. The entry takes 3 sentences. It describes a place the child will never see, remembered by someone who will not be here to describe it forever. She leaves space for more entries. Nobody assigned this task. Nobody asked for it. She does it because a digital record feels inadequate for something this large, and because she suspects, though she cannot yet explain why, that this book will matter more than most of the official logs she keeps. With population now approaching 80 and the basement expanding into a second connected tunnel, the base's leadership committee begins drafting the structure for a formal local governance council. The discussion takes 11 weeks. Most of it is procedural. One question, however, generates 4 separate sessions of argument. Who does the memorial tradition belong to? The basement entrance has carried a small metal plaque since year 2, a visitor's log of sorts that grew informally into a record of milestones. The question is whether the new council has authority over what goes on it, or whether it belongs to the crew as a whole. The committee votes 4-1 in favor of council authority. The dissenting vote belongs to the base's senior structural engineer. He does not explain his reasoning in the session record. He does not explain it afterward. The result stands. The reason does not. A veteran engineer, 11 years on base, longer than anyone except 2 others, dies during a routine EVA when a suit seal fails undetected for 90 seconds too long. There is no alert. There is no warning. There is a status reading that goes from nominal to absent in the time it takes to turn around. The base observes its first moment of silence. No chapel. No ground to stand on. The entire crew stands on the surface in vacuum, facing the crater rim where the sun never sets, for 60 seconds by the mission clock. The tradition is not written down before it happens. It is invented in the moment by the base commander, who will say later she had no idea where it came from, that it simply seemed like the only right thing, and so she did it. Her name is added to the plaque at the basement entrance. She is the first name on it. Below the entry, someone has scratched a single line into the metal that is not part of any official record. It is not her name. It is not a date. Nobody removes it. Nobody asks what it means. The council, which now has formal authority over the plaque, does not address it in any session. The line remains. Someone asks, quietly, in the days after the ceremony, whether this plaque will eventually need to move to the ship. Nobody answers. The question is not asked again. Not here. Space agencies from Europe, Japan, and India begin sending crews and equipment under a shared resource agreement. Blue Origin opens a dedicated lunar cargo run. Scheduled deliveries, fixed intervals. The first time the Moon has ever been on a timetable. Smaller national habitats begin construction on the crater's outer edge, becoming informal embassies. The basement, which began as one tunnel and one room, now connects to 4 separate structures. The map of it is updated every 3 weeks. The physician's handwritten record now has 31 entries. Each new birth produces one. A place on Earth described in a sentence that the child will not see. The entries are specific. A harbour in Cape Town where the light came in at a particular angle in the morning. A market in Istanbul that smelled of cardamom and diesel. A road in New Mexico that ran straight for 40 miles with nothing beside it but red rock. The parents write them. The physician keeps them. The book is not indexed and has no table of contents. It is read from the beginning each time someone opens it. It is not an official record. It does not appear in any mission manifest. It is simply a book that a physician started because it seemed necessary, and that has quietly become the most read document in the basement. a second agricultural dome comes online. Combined with the original, the base grows enough food to end regular shipments from Earth entirely. Waste recycling systems now convert nearly 90% of organic waste back into fertilizer. The supply line to Earth, 384,000 kilometers of dependency, is cut by choice. The base does not announce this as a milestone. It simply stops ordering food. The agricultural specialist who logged the Phosphorus anomaly in Year 9 returns to her original entry for the first time. The bacteria in the hydroponic substrate are now cycling phosphorus at 14% above designed rate, not 9%. The drift is slow. The direction is consistent. She files a second note and marks it for continued monitoring. She does not escalate it to the council. It is not yet a problem. She writes at the bottom of the entry, "In a closed system, there is no away. Everything that drifts, drifts towards something." Population passes 150. The Governance Council, 5 elected seats, a structure debated for 3 years before implementation, holds its first formal session. The first vote on the agenda is procedural. Should the record of votes and their outcomes be public or internal? It passes 3-2 in favor of public record. The 2 dissenting votes are not explained in the session transcript. The vote result is published. The reasoning is not. It is, everyone agrees afterward, a small government. It is also the first government any human settlement beyond Earth has ever needed. Both facts are true simultaneously, and the council members seem aware of both every time they sit down. The basement now has 11 children under the age of 10, including Shackleton, now 9 years old. A linguist visiting on a 6-month research posting notices something in the way the youngest ones speak. They use outside and up interchangeably, both meaning the surface, both meaning the place you wear a suit to go. The word sky has no stable referent for any child born here. What they call the sky is a dome of black with a fixed blue circle in it. A child who has never seen clouds does not have a word that means the same thing the word means on Earth. The linguist notes this in her report and marks it as the earliest observed linguistic drift in a non-Earth-born generation. She considers it preliminary. She files it and leaves. The children keep talking the way they talk. The basement stretches nearly a kilometer beneath the crater floor, a connected network of tunnels and chambers that began as one room and is now the closest thing to a town this world has. On the surface, solar arrays ring the sunlit peaks in an unbroken chain, and the reactor has been joined by a second unit. The physician's book has 47 entries. The plaque has 2 names and 1 unexplained line. This was never the destination. It was the proof that humans could eat food they grew in a crater, raise children in a tunnel, govern themselves without a home country, and mourn their dead in vacuum without a ceremony to borrow. Every failure absorbed here, every system redesigned, every tradition invented from nothing because nothing existed yet, it all becomes the blueprint for the next place. 90 million kilometers away, the first starships are already inbound to a colder, redder world, where the craters are larger and the distances between everything are longer, and nobody has yet decided what the first settlement will be named. On Mars, the ground is waiting. The lessons from Shackleton are packed and ready. The book travels with the physician when she rotates out. She mails it to the next one. She includes a note. Keep adding entries. Don't let it become a digital file. The weight of the thing matters.